Get ready. Straight from the streets of LA.
Lower Alabama, that is.
We're talking SEC football, and that's all. This is AP and Kelly as we see it.
I'm all about that action. I'm all about that action. I'm all about that action. I said I'm all about that action.
This is AP and Kelly as we see it, a syndicated weekly 1-hour show discussing the Southeastern Conference and always keeping an eye on the national college football scene and more. And we'd like to welcome a special guest co-host, Michael Butler, WTLS Radio, Montgomery, Alabama, and Lindy's Football Report. Hey, Michael.
AP, good to see you.
Yeah, great. This football season flies by. We're in the 7th, 8th, and 9th games for some teams. So we've been having a ball so far, very competitive. But before we start the show, Michael, we just got to thank some of our sponsors. We have Greer's Markets. Let's remember Lucy's Recipe Library. You don't have to reinvent things. You can go on their website, Greer's Market. She has all those favorite specialties for you. And remember, Greer's Market's family, friends, and football, especially on Saturdays. You're preparing those meals for your friends and family. But if you can't go to the store, be there in person, one of the 29 locations in Alabama, Florida, Mississippi, call an audible and go to their website and click on groceries to go, and they'll bring it to your house, your venue, your office, wherever it needs to be. And remember, Greer's got it. And we also like to thank Wind Creek Casino. They have the 3 locations in Alabama, Atmore, Montgomery, up by you, Michael, and Wetumpka as well. And they have a lot of you have a lot of fun there with the spa, the cooking schools, and you can be a player as well. So we want to thank Wind Creek Casino, those 3 locations in Alabama. And then Robertsdale Dental Care, 251-947-3636. Dr. Jason Northcutt. Not only does Dr. Jason Northcutt offer basic full-service dental treatment, but Dr. Jason Northcutt has developed a niche within the practice where he provides comprehensive dental implant services, such as single implants, bone grafting, and full mouth reconstruction. Dr. Jason Northcutt has been highly trained in those disciplines to offer comfortable and long-lasting solutions to major dental problems. Come by and see Dr. Jason Northcutt at Robertsdale Dental Care, 251-947-3636. And remember to check out our broadcast on our YouTube page at AP Stedham and also at AP and Kelly as we see it. And check our Instagram, our Facebook, our X account for the locations of all the radio stations, including WTLS in Montgomery, Alabama on Friday evenings, around 11 p.m. on Fridays.
We enjoy the show, AP. We appreciate you doing it, and looking forward to another big weekend in SEC football.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Hey, we might as well get into the ball games, Michael. Florida versus Texas. And you know what comes to mind, Michael, when I think about this? These 2 states, people recruit there every day, ending in Y. One team is having a good year, one of the top teams in the country. Florida has been struggling for quite a few years now with the change in coaches. Billy Napier's there. It's a home game for Texas. They're Michael, 21.5-point favorite, Texas at home.
And I was a little surprised by that, AP, because the thing I will say about Billy Napier, we all knew the schedule was going to be incredibly tough this year, the toughest probably in the country. But the program is improving. After the early Miami, we see Miami was pretty good. You look at the teams that they played, and losing to Georgia is something a lot of teams have done this year. So unfortunately for him, he's got to win a big game, and they have won some games. Georgia could have been it last week. You got to look at what happened last week with Florida and the fact that they had a chance in that football game, as decimated as are at the quarterback position. And I give some credit to the staff there for that.
Yeah, DJ Lagway, Michael, I covered that game last week in Jacksonville. He throws a good deep ball, and he did after a turnover, I believe, had the touchdown. He's promising. He's got talent. He was injured. So they were at a deficit at that position. They brought in the transfer from Yale. He did the best he could. Actually drove the field for a touchdown during the ball game, but they made some mistakes. Georgia came back. Florida intercepted Carson Beck 3 times in that ball game. So he's got a turnover issue, I think, Carson Beck, the Georgia quarterback.
Yeah, that's the flaw that he's had here is throwing to the other team. He's as good as anybody when he's on, and Florida took advantage of that and had a chance in that football game. And you know, you look at this week with Texas. Texas, 21-point favorites, a lot of points to me. Texas, Georgia, the teams at the top, the SEC. I just don't think the gap is there. And you can take Florida as an example of that. Every team in this league has a shot every week, more so than I can recall. Which
I
we
think
just
so.
all playoff rankings this week. It's a good year to go to 12 teams because it's up about it this year. It really is.
Yeah, I think so too. Some of the big numbers for Texas, their passing game is 13th in the country, total offense 16th, scoring is 16th. Defensively, their rush defense is 16, pass defense number 1, total defense number 1, and scoring defense number 2. So they have all the numbers on their side coming into this ball game. So Texas should win the game like you. I'm not sure if they're going to win by 21.5, but they should take care of business and keep in contention for that 12-team playoff.
Offense, but yeah, the inability of Florida probably to score a lot of points is why I think the number's big.
Oh yeah, for sure. Hey, Michael, we're going to move on to the next game, Mississippi State versus Tennessee. Oh, I just want to backtrack 1 second. That series, Michael, Texas and Florida, is only 2 games for Texas, one tie for Florida. It's 2-0-1 in that series. They haven't played very often.
Rivalries of football that we've got in the SEC, and the same thing across the country with these new realignments of conferences. We're going to see these games more down this road, but we haven't seen them much in the past.
No. Mississippi State, Tennessee, that series is 29-16-1 in favor of Tennessee. They had a bye. They're a 23.5-point favorite at number 7. I'm going by the college football poll, Michael. Mississippi State, 2-7, 0-5 in the conference. Beat UMass last week at home, 45-20. I think that quarterback's pretty good from them, the freshman Michael Van Buren Jr. from around the Baltimore area. But I don't think they're going to be able to manage Tennessee at home because Tennessee's one of those teams that's trying to stay in line for that college football playoff and get ready for the Georgia game.
Yeah, Mississippi State has gotten better. I think you remember when they lost to Toledo and got blown out at home early in the year, but you know they have come back and been better. This is a season they're just trying to get better each week. They did against Georgia. I bring Georgia back up. They gave Georgia a football game. They have improved greatly, but Tennessee is not a team that you're going to have a lot of success with. You talk about Texas's defense. Tennessee's is right up there, one of the best in the country. And that's the big turnaround for Tennessee this year that gives them hope, I think, looking ahead to Georgia, is what Josh Heupel's done. He's an offensive coach, but defensive, this is one of the best defenses in all of the country. They have to be careful, though. You know how it is. You can't look ahead, and it's going to be tough not to overlook with Georgia looming around the corner.
Yeah, can't look ahead. Number 5, defense, total defense is number 4. Scoring, number 5. Their offense total is number 9. Scoring, number 12. They're 9th with tackles for loss as well. They've been able to put pressure on people from the edge and get in the backfield and be disruptive. So that's the big improvement for the Tennessee and Tennessee fans. So, yeah, I think Tennessee will be fine in this ball game. I don't think they'll look ahead because they're trying to get better, especially on the offensive side. It hasn't blossomed like we all thought with that quarterback.
No. How many games have been shut out in the first half? And last week was one of those. The last game out, I think, against Kentucky, they scored once in the first half. They were shut out the first 2 weeks before that in the first half without any points. So it's been a mystery of bits, but when you can hold teams to 7 to 14 to 21 points, you got a chance.
Oh yeah, for sure. Hey, Michael, we're going to move on to Oklahoma and Mizzou. Those are 2 neighbors. They know each other. And there's some bad blood there, especially in the recruiting lately. I think they lost a tackle to Mizzou. Oklahoma wasn't happy.
Yeah, this is a long-time rival. As a matter of fact, to look it up, I think it's the Peace Pipe rivalry. I don't know if you remember it being called that. They don't call it that anymore. Going back, it goes back over 100 years. They played a lot of football games now. Back when they were the old Big 12 days,
right?
Oklahoma was dominating the rivalry, and they really do have that advantage traditionally. But I think they've won 18 of the last 20 against Missouri. And I'm surprised by this one, too, AP, since you're looking at some of the point spreads, that Missouri is no longer the favorite. It is in Oklahoma's favor. And I guess that's because of the suspect. We don't know if the status of Brady Cook, if he's going to play. Oklahoma's 1-4 in the SEC in their first season. They're going to Missouri. Seems a little odd that they're the favorite in this matchup.
Right, yeah, 67-24-5. That's the series with Oklahoma being the favorite, as you mentioned. That 2.5 points. I mean, I had to make sure I was reading that correctly,
Yeah.
Michael, especially Mizzou's playing at home. But their second string quarterback did not perform very well. I think he had 3 interceptions when they brought him in, Drew Pine. Just some of the numbers, Oklahoma's offense, total offense, 112, scoring 88. Defense, total defense, 29. You're surprised it's held up so long. They've had some bad games there as well because they've worn out. Sacks, number 9, tackles for loss, 7. Mizzou, 70th in scoring. That's surprising that they're so low. And the scoring defense, 17th, total defense, 13th. The wide receivers, they have that trio, Luther Burden III, Cooper and Weiss. So, but I'm surprised their scoring is so low. But Michael, we're getting to the end of this segment. We got 2 guests coming up: Leanne Herring, the director of recruiting for Rebel Walk, and Jacques Doucet for the TV station in Baton Rouge. And so we're going to be right back after these messages with another segment of AP and Kelly as we see it. I'm AP Stedham with Dr. Jason Northcutt of Robertsdale Dental Care.
AP, not only do we offer basic full-service dental treatment, but I also have developed a niche within the practice where I provide comprehensive dental implant services, such as single implants, bone grafting, and full mouth reconstruction. I've been highly trained in those disciplines to offer comfortable and long-lasting solutions to major dental problems.
Come by and see Dr. Jason Northcutt at Robertsdale Dental Care.
Hi, I'm AP Stedham for Greer's Markets. If you're planning a big party or for every day, shop at Greer's for delicious food, beverages, and snacks. Save time and money by checking on Greers.com and use Groceries to Go to get your Greer's groceries delivered. Look at the weekly ad for more information. 29 locations in Alabama, Florida, and Mississippi, serving the region since 1916. Remember, Greer's got it. They guarantee it.
And we're back with AP and Kelly as we see it, and we have a very special guest, Leanne Herring, the director of recruiting for Rebel Walk. Hey, Leanne, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me on. Thank you for having me back on. I think last time we were talking, Kelly and I, and you were on here, I was actually on my way to Atlanta for the big Milton Buford game. I can't believe we're already week 11. Playoffs are reached, CFP poll, a lot going on in football. Sorry, I already got basketball on my mind, but yeah, big weekend here, college football, and of course a huge historic weekend as Georgia comes to town to face those Ole Miss Rebels and see if the Rebels can hang on and keep those playoff dreams alive this weekend.
Oh yeah, Leanne, what's the feeling with Lane Kiffin? His record against the top teams. I mean, of course, and he had to build teams when he became the head coach. It's not that strong. But what is the feeling with the fans at Ole Miss about Lane Kiffin and playing these top-rated teams?
I think as you see, of course, the LSU loss and the close loss to Kentucky, half fans riled up like anything in the SEC. I mean, very well how passionate fans get, and there was a little bit of criticism there, but I think overall people appreciate what Lane's built. I think the redemption win in Arkansas, breaking that streak since 2008, not being able to win in Fayetteville, has kind of calmed the waters down. But I think overall, when while there's criticism of Lane and, in the way things are called sometimes, that's going to be natural in the SEC. But I think the overall feeling, especially heading into this game, what he's built since his time here in Oxford has been really something that I think that we can really stand on business. And I think a lot of fans at the end of the day, despite the criticism, are happy with the team that's going on, what's been building and what's going on. So I think that, despite the criticism, like anything in the SEC, I think fans are pleased with what the work Lane's done here, along with the team he's put together. Because I mean, from all the Ole Miss teams that we've seen that really have had an opportunity to be able to make a run for it, I think that this is probably the strongest team that Ole Miss has had in a long, long time. But again, Lane Kiffin's done a heck of a job and over time to be able to build his team, because like anything, great teams are not built overnight.
No, and this particular team, with the addition of the size and the length and the transfer portal and newcomers, the defense right now, do you believe it's one of the top defenses? I mean, it's listed as one of the top defenses in the country, scoring wise. It's sixth in the country, total defense 22. Do you think that they are a strong defensive team?
I think they are a strong defensive team, and I'm glad that you brought that point up, because I think, last year when we went on the road in Athens and we got physically manhandled and hauled in the trenches, and I think that this was kind of the beginning of the turning point where I think Kip and his staff really realizes that we needed to go out there in the recruiting season, in the off season, and go recruit power, physical guys, whether it be from the transfer portal, and definitely guys with length. And I think when he went out there and got that done on the off season, it really has made the impact and difference. And you can tell, especially with the defensive front going into this season. So no doubt, I think that last year's game and last season was a turning point of realization to Coach Kiffin and his staff that we need to go out there. We need to, win in the trenches. Games are won in the trenches. SEC help, defenses win championships, and they say, and that was a need and a void that Lane Kiffin and his staff went and filled. So no doubt, I think this defense front, with Walter Nolan, Princely, a lot of key players. They let a lot of young players like Centurion Perkins really stepping up. So I think that I think what makes this defensive front and this, defense as a whole so powerful is that there's just such a balance of young guys, veterans, transfer guys that have really stepped up and really have helped fill the void that we haven't had, that we have had struggles with in the past. And I think that's going to be a key component going into this Georgia game, who also has another elite defense, no doubt.
Oh, yeah. They're second in the rush defense, but 91st in the pass defense. That's a combination of the two? I mean, people have trouble running the ball, so that's why they're attempting to pass. Is that true?
I think we've seen the struggles with both these defenses, especially with Georgia. We saw, I think against the Kentucky game and all these kind of things, I think it's just really difficult in this day and age right now with the SEC to run the ball. And I think that's why we see a lot of defenses have struggling, especially even elite defenses, because, when you run with the run game as powerful as offensively, it's tough to go even with the most elite of defenses, because it's just, that wear down and that struggle and all that kind of things. But, as much as you want to look at statistics and things like that, I think at the end of the day, Ole Miss has done a great job defensively translating that onto the field. The defense has really been the unsung hero. I've said it from the offseason, especially that defensive front has really helped keep Ole Miss in line and help them, be victorious in a lot of these last minute games, because of the fact that they've been able to be so strong in the trenches.
Any major injuries for this game? Yeah.
I have not looked at the updated injury report, as it comes out every Wednesday and everything.
Right.
Obviously the storyline, will Trey Harris be back?
Yes.
I haven't looked if he's questionable. He's definitely he's an asset that is definitely missing from the offensive dynamic. But again, a lot of players have stepped up offensively. Of course, we're going to be out with Parrish, suffered an injury, our running back and everything. And I said that from the beginning. I take Lane Kiffin's and that staff's kind of like the Bill Belichick with Tom Brady when it comes to injury reports. Somebody's questionable, somebody's undoubted. So I think it'll be game time decisions. What I really appreciate, I think, in seeing what Lane Kiffin, how he's treated this. I know, of course, the fake injuries and so forth have been such a talk and a topic in the SEC.
Yes.
And all that's gone out. But I think at the end of the day, I think Kiffin and his staff have really taken concern to their players to make sure that if they want to make this long haul and this long stretch, that they keep players healthy. But I think what's made this Ole Miss team so dynamic this season, that despite the injuries, we've had a lot of depth on both sides of the ball, which is something we have not had the problem with, so to speak, in a very long time. So I think that Lane Kiffin having such depth on both sides of the ball, defensively and offensively, that despite, you don't want to be without guys like Trey Harris or, tight ends like Caden Prescorn or defensive guys, but at the end of the day, it has allowed a lot of players to step up. And I talked about it. I think some of the best performance offensively that we've seen was at, when we played against South Carolina and also against this Arkansas team that,
Right.
Been very touted, and Arkansas was a tough place to play for us. But I think the way that offensively we've been able to distribute the ball and had a lot of different playmakers step up and be able to keep defenses on their toes have really helped Ole Miss in their big wins this season.
Yeah, Jackson Dart, he did fine without some people on the offense. I mean, he set some records right last week against Arkansas, 63 points on the road in the SEC. I don't care if it's in warm-ups. That's a lot of points.
Exactly. That's a lot of points. And I know the previous week there was a lot of criticism about Jackson Dart, and then even in that game against Oklahoma, them trailing coming in, but they really turned it on and came really aggressively. And like I said, I think in this Arkansas game, and like what I alluded to, in that South Carolina win, I think that Jackson Dart being able to execute also begins in the trenches, and it's with that offensive line. And I think the offensive line early on had some struggles, but the last 2 games has really done an excellent job in their pass protection. And like I always say, for Jackson Dart to be able to execute and utilize all the dynamic resources, whether it be at the running back, tight end, wideout position that he has, it begins in the trenches, and that offensive line has to do their job. So, I know there was criticism that the offensive play calling and Jackson Dart, like I said, I don't think the naysayers were in full force last week after the performance in Arkansas, because it was just because the offensive line did not the best job, but they did a better job in being able to allow to keep Jackson Dart clean in the pocket and him operating. And again, like I said, not only did Jackson Dart have a day, but talk about Jordan Watkins setting all sorts of records. He's really been a go-to guy. Also a new father, a new daddy, trying to maintain. So he's got a lot on his plate, but he made it look easy in Arkansas. And like I said, young guys like Hayden Lee have stepped up. And we were out with pre-scoring last week, but we also had a transfer tight end, Daquan Wright, who stepped in the tight end position. Of course, JJ Bakese, doing those big man touchdowns. So again, Lane Kiffin in that offense, along with Charlie Weiss, have no problem having a lot of go-to guys. And I really like the option, as much as I don't like Cherry Harris or, key players being out. The fact that we're able to operate and Jackson Dart was able to execute in that ball distribution was really, I think, key in us being able to take control and be aggressive on that offense, which we hadn't seen in a while since, I believe, against South Carolina. So that was a good point. But again, it all begins with the trenches. I say that everybody's got to execute. Everybody's got to do their job, whether it be on the offensive or defensive side of the ball, for everybody to be able to make it work.
Yes, it's only a 2.5-point spread at home. They're looking for some redemption from last year. I know it's a different year, but I think Carson Beck, you can pressure him. Ole Miss in sacks, number 2 in the country. That's going to be a key to the ball game as well. Hey, Leanne, we want to thank you so much for being on AP and Kelly as we see it. And people can find you at Rebel Walk, the director of recruiting. And I know you keep an eye on Texas too, but that's for another day, another conversation. But I know it's a big ball game. A lot of people will be watching. It's not the night game, but it's a big afternoon game in Oxford, Mississippi, and I know people love it. So thank you very much, Leanne, for being on AP and Kelly as we see it. And we'll be right back after these messages.
Hi, I'm AP Stedham for Greer's Markets. If you're planning a big party or for every day, shop at Greer's for delicious food, beverages, and snacks. Save time and money by checking on Greer's.com and use groceries to go to get your Greer's groceries delivered. Look at the weekly ad for more information. 29 locations in Alabama, Florida, and Mississippi, serving the region since 1916. Remember, Greer's got it. They guarantee it. I'm AP Stedham with Dr. Jason Northcutt of Robertsdale Dental Care.
AP, not only do we offer basic full-service dental treatment, but I also have developed a niche within the practice where I provide comprehensive dental implant services, such as single implants, bone grafting, and full mouth reconstruction. I've been highly trained in those disciplines to offer comfortable and long-lasting solutions to major dental problems.
Come by and see Dr. Jason Northcutt at Robertsdale Dental Care.
And we're back with AP and Kelly as we see it, and our very special guest is Jacques Doucet, WAFB TV in Baton Rouge. Jacques, welcome to AP and Kelly as we see it.
AP, thanks for having me, buddy.
Another big weekend in Baton Rouge. Isn't that the normal, Jacques?
Yeah, you want to be playing in a game that means something in early November, and certainly that's the case right now as LSU prepares to play host to the Alabama Crimson Tide. Look, both teams are ranked a little lower than they typically are, certainly from Alabama's perspective. I mean, during the Nick Saban time, every time LSU played Alabama, it seemed like they were number 1, 2, 3. I mean, certainly in the top 5. They're number 11 right now. LSU is number 13, I believe, number 14. So, but LSU Alabama is always going to be big. It'd be an exciting game. It'd be packed no matter what. But with the college football playoff now and 12 teams getting in, this game right here kind of becomes a playoff game in itself. A lot of people believe that the winner keeps themselves alive in the playoff hunt, while the loser will have 3 losses and perhaps be out. So that's what makes the game very suspenseful, and we'll have a lot of people watching for sure.
Jacques, what's the update on LSU? Any injuries or, Garrett Nussmeier, he's a very good quarterback, but he does throw some interceptions at times, like all quarterbacks, but you don't want to have too many in this game.
Well, before this year, before he became the full-time starter, in the times he had played in the past, he'd make a brilliant play, a Brett Favre type or Johnny Manziel, spin around the pocket, chunk it down the field for a touchdown, and then sometimes cancel it out by, forcing the issue and throwing an interception or a turnover or thereabouts. So that was kind of the concern or the question about him being a full-time starter. I think Brian Kelly made the comparison before the year. He said in the past it was a rental car for Garrett. He wasn't the owner of the car, so he didn't care if he scratched it or dented it up. Now it's his car. And he did a pretty good job protecting the ball. I think he threw those 2 picks in the South Alabama game, which LSU was never going to lose. But Coach Kelly really chewed into him after the second pick he threw. And this game against Texas A&M, it really was his worst half of football. I mean, he threw 3 interceptions in the first half. I think the first interception he threw really kind of shifted the whole game because LSU was up 17-7. It was a 3rd down play. He rolls left. He tries to throw it back right. A&M intercepts the ball. They run it back to the LSU 10. They put Marcel Reed in, the backup quarterback, who immediately gets a snap, runs in the end zone for a touchdown. He's got immediate confidence. The 108,000 people are going nuts, and the whole game just kind of swung there. So, and he threw 2 more picks later in the game. But LSU across the board really just kind of collapsed simultaneously with the special teams trying 3 field goals and missing all 3 or missing 3 field goals for one reason or another, and the defense not being able to defend the zone read. So I think this is a big game for Garrett to try to bounce back, and he needs help though. Coach Kelly's talked about that. He needs a running game. He needs some help around him.
Yeah, that running total in the country, 111th, Jacques, it really surprised me. I know that they had a game or two where one of the running backs had some nice yardage, but consistently through the season, it's been difficult.
Yeah, and that's probably one of the more disappointing things about this team is that before the year, you thought that the offensive line was going to be the strength of the team. You were rebuilding a defense. You had a new defensive coordinator taking over an outfit that was really pathetic last year, honestly, and you thought, well, the offensive line might be able to, possess the ball, run the ball, keep the defense off the field, rest them a little bit. You've got 2 future first rounders and Will Campbell and Emory Jones at the tackle position. You've got veterans like Miles Frazier and Garrett Dellinger, although Dellinger is out for this game. He's got an ankle injury. But you had just a veteran presence on that offensive line. And there were some signs early in the year, like when they played Nichols. You'd think you'd be able to pop a couple of 50-yard runs against Nichols, and your longest run was 12 yards. And so you kept hearing things about, they got people in the box, and they're staff rolling. And the running game did pop here and there, South Carolina, Arkansas. But this past game, I believe, between Josh Williams and Caden Durham, it was something like, 23 carries for 38 yards. It was rough. It was so bad, AP, at one point, they handed the ball off and said, that's a big play. They broke one. It was 3
Yeah, that's very disappointing for that team. Now, defensively, we all know LSU just had atrocious last year. I think they made some improvement. Their scoring is 54th, which is it's in the middle of the numbers for the whole FBS level type of football. So, but they've had their moments, beat Ole Miss, and but this Alabama game, running quarterback Jalen Milroe, the quarterback from A&M, the dual threat freshman, came in, ran all over him. Can they stop Jalen Milroe? I know there's an emphasis, but I think the most puzzling thing was Brian Kelly made a point about, well, the other quarterback came in and we weren't prepared, something along those lines. And it stunned me.
Yeah, I mean, Greg Penn III, linebacker for LSU, I knew the second he said it, I was like, oh, that's not going to go over well. He said, we really didn't prepare for Marcel Reed. We thought Connor Wegman was going to play the whole game. And, and when you got a coach making $10 million a year and a defensive coordinator making $2.5 million a year, and, something like that gets said, the fans are going to get upset. But,
yeah,
I was visiting with a high school coach yesterday. I was speaking at a quarterback club and we're talking. He's like, that's day one stuff on the lower level of football or whatever, defending the zone read. And LSU just couldn't do it. And so, Milroe last year when LSU went to Tuscaloosa ran for 155 yards and 4 touchdowns in the game. They could not stop him. And Reed, the A&M guy, he's like a $185 or something. Milroe is a linebacker. He's like 225 or whatever. So a little harder to tackle. But I'm looking at his numbers, AP. I mean, you're over there, right? You're in Alabama.
Down.
Yeah. He's thrown 3 touchdowns in the last 4 games and 5 interceptions. And his rushing numbers, I realize in college football, when a guy gets sacked, they take that off his rushing totals. But he's not put up huge numbers. Now, it doesn't mean he won't against LSU, but he definitely is not a Heisman Trophy candidate or anything like that, I don't believe.
No. His numbers this year, especially running the football, it's like I was saying in the other segment, I believe it's like a pitcher the second time around. They caught on to him. And you get in a rhythm, you can stop somebody. So Alabama's going to have to play much better over in Baton Rouge, and especially on the road. They have the 2 losses on the road. But this ball game is usually exceptional. LSU, they're number 6 in sacks, Jacques. So I think Alabama, they've had trouble blocking for them.
Well, Kevin Peoples, LSU's new edge rushing coach, came from Missouri with Blake Baker, Savion Jones, and Braden Swinson. I think last I checked, they combined for 14 sacks or something like that. Those 2 guys have been a big force on the edges. And so that's where a lot of your sacks are coming from. Harold Perkins Jr. was in his 3rd year with LSU, and a lot was expected. Right. He got hurt and didn't have a sack when he went out. I think you could use Harold Perkins in a game like this with his speed against Milroe. But, Whit Weeks has had a tremendous season. He, as well as a lot of other people, kind of had a humbling game against A&M. And I'm sure they've been hearing about that for 2 weeks. So I think that plays to LSU's advantage. When you've been hearing that you've been kind of punched in the mouth and humbled, you want to certainly prove it to people next time out. And they've had 2 weeks to kind of get ready for this. So I would expect them to come out with their hair on fire. Hopefully the weather doesn't impact this game too much. We've got that thing out in the Gulf. So we may have some rain and some wind, but hopefully it's not too bad.
Oh, yeah. Just want to mention one more thing. Mason Taylor, the tight end, and Kyron Lacey, that's the focal point of the offense, Jacques. And then I want you to discuss your foundation, if you would. We got about 2 minutes.
I think they get the ball around to different people. Aaron Anderson from New Orleans, who was at Alabama last year.
That's right.
He's been a huge turnaround. 2 years ago, he was at Alabama. That was a famous clip. Saban, after last year's game, said you'd be playing more over here if you would have stayed or catching more balls. But last year I think he had 12 catches for 59 yards the whole year with LSU. This year he's made a lot of big plays. Kyron Lacey's a solid guy in the receiving core. Mason Taylor, kind of quiet the last game against A&M, but he is certainly going to be a future pro at the position. And of course, 2 years ago, it's the biggest play of his life, right? He catching the 2-point conversion against Alabama to win the game in Tiger Stadium. So those are big options for LSU in the passing game. Chris Hilton Jr., a kid from Zachary who's been hurt a lot. He finally came back against A&M, caught a few passes, so he may be a guy that LSU can turn to as well in that aspect.
And then, Jacques, you have your foundation. Can you discuss that and tell people how they get involved?
Yeah, appreciate it. We have an organization called Red Rock and Blue that we started years back. We do a softball tournament, a huge softball tournament every year, slow pitch softball tournament. We've had teams come in from Alabama and other Mississippi and other places. We typically get 80 to 90 teams to play in it each year. And we do some concerts, and we basically give back to Louisiana military organizations like the Blue Star Moms of Louisiana and some others that do things for veterans. There's one called Gulf Coast Veterans that they take wounded warriors on fishing trips and hunting trips, pay for everything, feed them, no expense. And so it's not, I mean, it's about the money. It's not about the money, but I think we just gave $70,000 in the last year. It's probably a high that we did. We also did a spinoff event for the firefighter, Louisiana Firefighter Foundation, gave $18,000 to them. So we had a very big year, and redrockandblue.com is our website. We don't really do anything until the spring or the summer, but if you want to sponsor or you want to support it, you can find us online.
Hey, congratulations, Jacques. Jacques Doucet, Sports Director, WAFB TV in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And we'll be right back after these messages with AP and Kelly as we see. Thank you, Jacques.
Thank you, AP.
Hi, I'm AP Stedham for Greer's Markets. If you're planning a big party or for every day, shop at Greer's for delicious food, beverages, and snacks. Save time and money by checking on Greers.com and use Groceries to Go to get your Greer's groceries delivered. Look at the weekly ad for more information. 29 locations in Alabama, Florida, and Mississippi, serving the region since 1916. Remember, Greer's got it. They guarantee it. I'm AP Stedham with Dr. Jason Northcutt of Robertsdale Dental Care.
AP, not only do we offer basic full-service dental treatment, but I also have developed a niche within the practice where I provide comprehensive dental implant services, such as single implants, bone grafting, and full mouth reconstruction. I've been highly trained in those disciplines to offer comfortable and long-lasting solutions to major dental problems.
Come by and see Dr. Jason Northcutt at Robertsdale Dental Care.
And we're back with AP and Kelly as we see it. We have a special guest co-host this week, Michael Butler of WTLS Radio in Montgomery, Alabama, and also Lindy's Football Report. Michael, we want to thank our guest, Leon Herring, the Director of Recruiting for the Rebel Walk, and also we want to thank Jacques Doucet, the Sports Director for WAFB TV in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. But we're going to continue our discussion about these ball games, Michael. So it's only 6 games this week, but there's 2 big ones we're going to finish up with. Well, we have to get to South Carolina versus Vandy. 2 very interesting teams, Michael, because South Carolina had some upsets along the way. They've played very well in some ball games at home and have been really annihilated at home a few times. So been up and down with their season, but they're coming off a big high after beating Texas A&M. 44-20. They were tied. Texas A&M was undefeated in the conference. The series with Vanderbilt is 29-4, and Vandy is coming off that big win on the road over Auburn, 17-7.
Yeah, if you told me before the season, AP, this is going to be one of the biggest games of this weekend, I'd said you're crazy. What they're going to do this year, and on top of that, South Carolina has been good at times. They really have. Last week, good as they've been all season, and it came at a good time because Texas A&M had not lost a conference game. Very impressive in their victory. And I got to say about Vanderbilt, too, you keep thinking that it's eventually going to happen, that they're going to just go back to being the old Vanderbilt we're used to. But not the case. I look, just a huge win at Auburn last weekend for them, too. And both of these teams are now bowl eligible.
Yeah, Diego Pavia Magic. Hugh Freeze does not want to see him ever again because beating him with 2 different teams 3 times, and they were double-digit favorites every time at Liberty and then at Auburn last year with New Mexico State, and then also this year against Auburn. South Carolina has those inverted numbers, Michael. Scoring 49, total offense 91. Those are good numbers instead of the other way around.
Odd to see that. The numbers don't stack up when you look at the stats, but they're finding ways. And, they did it last week against A&M. That was a game that, was anybody's at halftime. They shut them out the second half and just dominated.
Oh, yeah, they did. They're number 3 in sacks, number 8 for total losses, turnovers 30 in the country. Those are all good numbers. Interceptions 14. That's another good number. Vandy has the inverted numbers as well, Michael. Scoring 52, total offense 107. Think about that. 107, but you're 50 points better on the scoring.
Well, and I give them credit on the defensive side last week. They held Auburn to 7 points, and it was not that they've been seeing from Diego Pavia, who's been the story of the year. He couldn't complete a pass for a couple of quarters, but they found a way in the end to get into the end zone and pull away and win that football game.
Yeah, scoring defense 30 for Vanderbilt. That is tremendous improvement from last year when they couldn't stop anyone, not even in the warm-ups, as we said.
They went winless in the SEC last year, and it's just a night and day what they are this year.
No. So we're in that series 29-4. As I said, we're going to move on to the Alabama LSU game, Baton Rouge, Saturday night. That's a huge ball game. Both teams, it's really a playoff game. They have the 2 losses. That series, Michael, Alabama 56 leads the series, 27 for LSU and 5 ties. They both have the byes, both have the 2 losses. Alabama scoring 16th in the country, scoring defense 19th, turnover margin 16th in the country. Those are good numbers for Alabama. 14th in interceptions. LSU's 34th in scoring. And scoring defense, 54, and number 6 in sacks. And we know that if you can get to Jalen Milroe, that could be an issue.
It has been the issue. He hasn't been comfortable in the pocket. And even though Alabama's numbers offensively this season are good, they have fallen off here lately. Some of that because of the competition, certainly. But you're getting to go to this game. It's one of the great settings, contrary to what Lane Kiffin wants. I mean, it's going to be the night prime time. And Alabama's record is really good in Baton Rouge, but there have been some really crazy games that have happened there, very close. And I was able to go a few years back and see some of that myself. It's a place where LSU has won 14 straight in the conference, 14 straight games at home, and that is tops behind only Georgia in the SEC as far as home. It's a tough place to play, and Tiger Stadium night ball game.
Michael. Last year, they had trouble tackling Jalen Milroe. A lot of people did. But this year, it's like a baseball pitcher. You've seen him once now. The second time around, not as effective. But LSU had trouble in one of their games, and I think Brian Kelly mentioned, I guess it was Texas A&M. The dual threat freshman quarterback came on the scene, and they couldn't stop him. So if they don't repair that part of their defense, it's going to be a long night for the Tigers in Baton Rouge because Jalen Milroe is, one of the better athletes on the field for both teams.
Yeah, and we haven't seen his ability to run flourish as much early in the year. They haven't really had that game going. They had to work on that in the off week, but on the flip side, so did LSU in trying to stop it because they were exposed at Texas A&M with a quarterback run game. I'm curious to see how Jalen Milroe performs because he has not been his best on the road. Alabama has 2 road games in the SEC, and they've got 2 losses in the SEC. Here's another one. And LSU's been its best when it's been playing on its own field.
Right. And Garrett Nussmeier, he's a quality quarterback. He will throw some interceptions. Michaels, we've seen Texas A&M game. He's got some good receivers, Kyron Lacey. Their offensive line, they don't run the ball very well, Michael, 111th. And they have 2 good offensive tackles, but for some reason they can't run the football effectively or consistently.
And it puts the pressure on Nussmeier, and I think that's why you've seen more picks this year. You bring up the A&M game there last time out. They had no run game at all in that game, and it was all on him, and he made mistakes in that passing game. So that's the key here is I think for either team, can you have some consistency and take some of the pressure off the quarterback by having at least a semblance of a running game.
Right. They're number 6 in the country in passing. So they might end up relying on throwing the football on Saturday night. And we know that Alabama's secondary is young and inexperienced. Not that they don't have the talent, but they don't act in harmony. And there's been a lot of blown coverages with this Alabama defense.
And you brought up the receivers. LSU has always had great receivers. So Alabama's as talented as anybody back there in the defensive secondary, but you get these one-on-ones with these guys from LSU, you got to make plays. It's going to be an interesting matchup to see.
Yeah, Ryan Williams, the freshman, maybe he breaks out again. He's been kind of quiet lately. Ryan Williams.
Targeting, man. They want him to be the guy, and I think they need to look for another option, so it's not solely based on going in 20 times a game like they did at Tennessee.
No. We're going to move on from that game to Georgia Ole Miss. Georgia's a 2.5-point favorite at Ole Miss. They played Florida last week, won that ball game, had to come from behind, 34-20. Ole Miss had the big game on the road, 63 points, 31 points for Arkansas on the road. This series, Michael, 33 for Georgia, 12 for Ole Miss, and 1 tie. Georgia has good numbers on defense, number 13 in scoring offense, 32. Passing number 12 in the country. Running, Michael, I keep saying this every week, they're 97th. They're very low. And we know Kirby Smart loves to run the football, but they've had trouble all year. So that's why Carson Beck, maybe he's pressing some, but he doesn't seem to have the good vision. Last week I was at the ball game, threw over the middle a couple of times. There were 3 defenders. I couldn't understand his view, his prism of the defense. It just seemed like they were right in front of him. He threw the ball anyway.
Yeah, he's made some decisions like that have baffled us a bit because we know he coming into the season one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Still believe he's capable of that. And I look at Georgia. The defense is not just a shutdown dominant defense this year as well. So and then on the flip side with Ole Miss, what a week last week for Jackson Dart, broke all the records, 515 passing yards.
Right.
I mean, Archie Manning and Eli Manning played there. If you want to, though that's. Last year in this game, I go back to last year in Athens when Ole Miss was excited about their opportunity to prove that they have arrived. It was far from that. They gave up 611 yards. That was the most that Georgia had yardage-wise against any team last year in 61 plays. So do the math, about 10 yards per play, and blew them off the field. Lane Kiffin, he made the proclamation there that we're not there. It's just a different team that they have. Hours talking about all the 5 stars. Have they narrowed the gap? I think they probably have. That's why the line, I think, is only about a field goal for Georgia. And I think
that's right.
Ole Miss. We didn't say this about LSU and Alabama, but it's an elimination game for them. This is an elimination for Ole Miss. They cannot lose. We're talking about making the playoff. And I'm not sure there's a path for Georgia with a second loss if they don't get to the SEC title game. Certainly have the reputation. But yeah, there's a lot of teams in the mix right now, so it's a big game for them that they really need to take care of business.
Yeah, it gets interesting if you have that second loss. I wouldn't want to be on Sunday. You probably have to have somebody else's help to be part of that and earn a berth. But just wanted to mention, Kirby Smart mentioned about this ball game on the road. Can they protect the quarterback and run the ball and be physical at the line of scrimmage? And he says he also said that Ole Miss has more players on the defensive line that can make plays. And he says players make schemes better. I like that quote. Players make schemes better.
That's the X's and O's line with the Jimmys and Joes line. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So so much better defensively. And I give some credit to Pete Golding. They've been pretty physical up front. I heard you say earlier in the show talking about the run defense. Their defense against the run is strong, so it puts that pressure back on Carson Beck.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Hey, we just want to mention the byes, Michael. We have Arkansas. Too many turnovers for that team. Auburn, Kentucky, number 14, Texas A&M. Arkansas also has their secondary issues, and they used all kind of coverages and blitzes, but they gave up 63 points. But, hey, Michael, I would just want to thank you so much for being a co-host this week on AP and Kelly as we see it. Michael Butler from WTLS Montgomery Radio, and also Lindy's football review. And so we want to thank you so much for being here. Football Report. So Michael Butler, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we'll see you. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for giving me an opportunity. Hope to do it again sometime.
Appreciate it, Michael. We'll see you next week. AP and Kelly as we see it. Bye-bye now.
Hi, I'm AP Stedham for Greer's Markets. If you're planning a big party or for every day, shop at Greer's for delicious food, beverages, and snacks. Save time and money by checking on Greer's.com and use Groceries to Go to get your Greer's groceries delivered. Look at the weekly ad for more information. 29 locations in Alabama, Florida, and Mississippi, serving the region since 1916. Remember, Greer's got it. They guarantee it.